I want to state emphatically here and prove with facts, not fiction. I want to prove with truth and not hyperbole that the 19-year-old girlfriend of Trayvon Martin, Rachel Jeantel, acquitted George Zimmerman through her 2 days of testimony on trial in Sanford, Florida. And, you know, when I had heard early on, going back to shortly after the shooting, that Trayvon Martin was on the phone with his girlfriend, I often wondered what she was like. If you don't mind, I wondered what she looked like and what kind of a girl would be interested or attracted to Trayvon Martin, and what kind of a girl Trayvon Martin would be attracted to as a possible girlfriend. I didn't give it a lot of thought, but I did think about it. And I got to tell you, Rachel Jeantel was probably not what I thought would be the kind of girlfriend that Trayvon Martin would have. But that having been said, I want to also state that I'm going to go through some facts here, and I will acknowledge that in America at present, and will continue, there are two sets of justice in terms of the perception of how people are going to perceive this trial and whatever the outcome will be. I'm going to go ahead now and state emphatically that George Zimmerman has been acquitted by the testimony of Rachel Jeantel. But there are two sets of justice. Justice number one will be that Trayvon Martin is guilty because he's black, and a number of people will think that way about him, that he is indeed guilty, and whatever has been said about him is true stereotypical types of person from the hood with all the other information surrounding his character, that Trayvon Martin is guilty and that George Zimmerman should be set free. That's going to be one mindset, and I'm going to elaborate on that at the conclusion of these words I have to express to you at present. But there'll be people that will say immediately that George Zimmerman is guilty because whites hold blacks down. The system is geared against blacks. Since slavery, blacks have suffered, and blacks have gone through horrific times of dealing with white people, and so therefore Zimmerman killed them out of a racist, slavery, Jim Crow, superior ideology. I'd like to point up a couple of things there, because that would be the other set of justice, and coming from whatever perspective you may particularly subscribe to, whether you are black and liberal or whether you're white and conservative. But George Zimmerman's not white in the traditional sense. I mean, he's not Irish, he's not Scottish, he's not English, he's not Russian, he's not Italian, he's not Greek, he's not what we traditionally would refer to as white. He has a large dose of Latin blood in him and some Jewish blood. And that within itself would disqualify him for the term of being white. And as my friend Attorney Unger stated, that the dunghead media and the liberals jumped the gun on this one before they found out that Zimmerman's not white. Had they done a thorough investigation, they would determine what his background is, his Latino blood, his Jewish blood, and probably would have never prompted this matter to the high heavens that the media had the ability to propel it to, and therefore have brought all this pain in America simply because he was alleged to be white. That we need to acknowledge going forward. Number two, I would like to state that there are no full and complete, from start to finish, neutral eyewitnesses to this event. Now, we've heard a lot of testimony. People have heard bits and parts, people looking out the window, hearing sounds, but no one has seen the entire event and can declaratively state what went on from start to finish and give a clear picture as to who is guilty and who is not guilty. The only person right now that knows the full story that's alive is George Zimmerman. He's the only person on this planet, other than God, who knows the full story. However, what we do have is not an eyewitness to the event, but we have an ear witness to the event, and even the ear witness, who we're now going to raise as Rachel Jeantel, is not an ear witness to all of the proceedings. She's an ear witness to where the matter began, and to some degree where it became fatal, But after that, even she's left in the dark, and she was in Miami at the time, Sanford, Florida, several hundred miles north of Miami. She was communicating with Trayvon Martin, her boyfriend, or her friend, I should say, at the time. And so she only has an ear witness account of what has taken place. But I'm going to recount some of the things that you and I can now agree are documented facts and truth. And through those documented facts and truth, I have concluded, and I'm sure that others logically thinking without already having a preconceived notion about guilt will agree that the testimony of Rachel Jeantel has acquitted George Zimmerman. Number one, in terms of facts, Zimmerman is on record with the 9/11 police department as having said that these effing punks always get away. And I think he also used the A word as well, with another adjective to it, describing who he believed Trayvon Martin to be, walking in that community with a hood on and on a rainy Sunday evening. He said these effing punks always get away. Now, you and I will agree that the language that he used was indeed vulgar. But we'll also have to agree that, and even though I repeat a lot of different things, if I can get some biblical leeway on the words I repeat here, and I want to state that if it's not biblical, I don't say them. These words are not biblical, and so therefore I will not repeat them, but you get the idea. They are vulgar, they are ugly, they are judgmental, but they're also generic. And by that I mean they're not racial. You can call white boys punks. You can call Latinos punks. You can call black people punks. Punk does not connote a racist connotation. It isn't racist. You can call a person AA. Well, you know what that is. But everybody's got one of those. So it's not necessarily a racist tone, a racist identity. It's generic. So we have established now on record that George Zimmerman did not use racial slurs. He used some vulgar and ugly slurs that you and I would not repeat, but again, they were not racist. And we've been able to demonstrate this through the reports that have been issued by the Sanford Police Department and the 911 operator. Now, on the other hand, Trayvon Martin, according to the testimony of Rachel Jeantel, also had some statements that were recorded over his conversation with her, and she has made them now a part of the permanent court record of what Trayvon Martin's last words were. And Trayvon Martin, talking to Rachel Jeantel, walking back from the 7-Eleven, happened to notice George Zimmerman. And he identified George Zimmerman to his girlfriend, according to documented court reportings there in Sanford, Florida. He identified George Zimmerman as a creepy-ass cracker. And then in a second statement after having identified him as such, and then a little bit more talking with his girlfriend Rachel Jeantel on the phone, he said, "The nigger is still following me." So now those two statements have been entered into court record as fact. I'm not making them up. I did not suggest them. It's just the facts that's what he said. So now, upon examination of what Trayvon Martin said, calling George Zimmerman a creepy-ass cracker, that's racist. It's about as racist as you can get. There's only one other word that can be said, and that's nigger. So out of Trayvon Martin's mouth flowed a stream of racial epithets. Trayvon Martin demonstrated racism in his perception of who George Zimmerman was. George Zimmerman simply demonstrated the punk attitude of Trayvon Martin, but non-racial. Now that's just the facts, everybody. There's no mitigating that. So if you're going to ask of the two men on that fateful night, who was the racist and who was the generic person, though vulgar, you'll have to conclude that both of them were vulgar But one was a racist, and the racist was Trayvon Martin. There's no getting around that. I pray you'll accept that. Now, you may want to argue against it. But the other thing I think that we need to point up here as we go forward in looking at the facts is that Rochelle Jeantel, the 19-year-old Haitian, who gave testimony and was a friend of Trayvon Martin, she can be forgiven for trying to convict George Zimmerman and to aid and comfort the mother and father of Trayvon Martin. She can be forgiven of that. And the reason why I say she can be forgiven, and I think we all who are adults can understand, and those of us who have been around for a little while can understand, because she lied on several occasions. And her reason for lying was that she wanted to make her story the evidence that would clearly indicate George Zimmerman as the aggressor, George Zimmerman as the hater, George Zimmerman as the racist, George Zimmerman as the murderer of her friend Trayvon Martin. She wanted to do that. I can forgive her for wanting to do. I can understand that 19 years old, and at any other age, people lie all the time when they want to try to get a conviction or they want to be exonerated. I can forgive her for that. I will not hold that against her, and I want to be clear about that. But I think what I haven't heard anyone say in the dung-head media is that the reason why Rochelle Jeantel was hostile there and was surly, especially the first day, and dismissive of the process was not so much that she was grieving for Trayvon Martin. That was not the case, while I'm sure she does, and she's still sympathetic towards his family and to the black race, and would like to see George Zimmerman convicted, as a matter of fact. I'm sure that's still what she feels. But the reason why she was hostile is that she knew that she was going to have to get on that stand and repeat that lie, those 3 lies, and be confronted with them, and that was very unpleasant for her. That's the reason why she was hostile. And once she was able to admit that she lied, she loosened up a little bit, not much, but the hostility was not at the Don West or white people. It was because of the fact, you know, when you got to get on the stand and lie, and somebody I'm sure told her she's going to be cross-examined 9 ways to 9 ways, and anything that she says she can be caught in a lie. That's what made her not so much hostile as hesitant, which came off from a 19-year-old who doesn't have a lot of media savvy as being hostile, as we understand. But let's go over the lies that she told. Lie number 1, she lied about why she did not attend the wake or the funeral of her friend. She lied to Sabrina Fulton. She lied to the prosecutor. She lied to the investigators about why she did not attend, and she admitted that she lied. So we know it's on record and documented that her reason for not attending, she lied about that. Lie number 2 was she was questioned on the stand as to whether or not she told Sabrina Fulton, who is the mother of Trayvon Martin, what were his last words? What was their conversation all about? This mother and father, I'm sure, were hanging on to everything that Rochelle Jeantel had to say. She was the last person, Rochelle Jeantel was the last person to speak to her son, the last person. What did he say? Was he afraid? What did he say? Did he tell you to tell me that he loved? What were my son's last words? And Rochelle Jeantel had enough compassion to understand how grieved the mother was and didn't want to hurt her by telling her exactly what her son was saying. He was cussing up a blue streak. She didn't want to tell his mother that, so she lied to his mother. And I can forgive her for that. No, I can. I would not hold that against her. I can forgive her for that because I would understand that. But the problem is that it came out anyway. But I would not hold that against Rochelle. While I hold lying against anyone and despise the whole act of it, I think that I can forgive her for trying to protect the mother who was sad. So we can understand that there's a third lie she's been caught in. It's been documented. She's almost now a court-certified liar, Jeantel is. But there is another lie that she told that I think that she didn't have to tell as well, which now makes her a court-certified liar. And that is, on the second day upon her return, Attorney Don West asked her, did she talk to someone who coached her, because she seemed markedly different on the second day of testimony than she did the first. And she quickly responded, no, I just went home and went to sleep. Well, now we all know that's a lie. We all know that's a lie. And not only is it a lie, but if she went home after that train wreck that first day in her testimony, and nobody told her about her demeanor, nobody told her what she looks like, nobody schooled her on how to better approach the matter of the questions, if nobody said anything to her or coached her or told her, no lawyer, no attorney, and everybody knows attorneys prep witnesses for the witness stand. Everybody knows that you do that. So for her to just flat out lie and say she talked to no one makes her now a court-certified liar, and a lie of which I will not forgive her of. There's no reason why she could have needed to tell that. All she had to do was just say, yeah, some people told me I was a little bit, hostile and surly, and so I'm going to try to be a little bit better. That's all she had to do, because somebody did tell her. The other thing now, as a result of that, I've now labeled her as a court-certified liar, which means her credibility is shot. She has admitted to being lying, and if she has admitted to lying about these things that we're now documented in the courts, and lying about something that was obvious that she didn't have to lie about, such as where she prepped, then she has no credibility. And what else has she lied about? And I don't think a jury would send a man 25 years of life in prison on the words of a person who is now a court-certified liar, and an obvious one. But fact number 4, her hostility, as we stated before, was because she feared that she was going to have to defend her lies. And as I stated, I've already forgiven her for those first 2 lies. However, as a 17 or an 18-year-old, being under the spotlight of an event that with the national and international attention that this trial has garnered, it can be overwhelming. And so I would ask people to understand, not to forgive lying and to whitewash it and excuse it, but I would forgive her motives for having done so. Fact number 5 that we want to promote here, as we are now demonstrating unequivocally and emphatically and incontrovertibly that Jeantel has acquitted George Zimmerman. And fact number 5 is this. She said that Trayvon Martin said to her upon his first observance of the George Zimmerman, the neighborhood watch commander or person or captain, that he looks like a rapist. Now, when I heard that, I mean, I let the statement of the sound of wet grass, I kind of let that one go for a moment, because when I heard that she said that he looked like a rapist, well, now, if you look like a creepy-ass cracker, I guess rapists can be creepy-ass crackers. But I tried to think, have I ever looked at anyone in a neutral setting, black or white, and my definition of them, or my first impression of them is that they're a rapist. I don't know if anyone has ever done that before. That just sounds so oddball. He looks like a rapist. But what's worse than that, a 17-year-old, if he's judging the demeanor and the character of someone that he doesn't know on a rainy night while there's still some sunlight, in a pretty upscale community, for a 17-year-old, the first impression of a person is that they are a rapist is wholly disconnected to reality. 17-year-old boys don't look at other men and think that they're rapists. In fact, men don't see other men as rapists. Now, perhaps George Zimmerman could have said to her, he's a racist, because that's very close to the word rapist. But she emphatically said, no, he looks like a rapist. I think she's lying about that. A woman may think about a man being a rapist. I know if a woman is walking in a development or walking someplace at night and there's a man there that's maybe looks like he's, you know, in a suspicious character, a woman might think of him as a rapist. A man might think about him as a robber, as a mugger, but never a rapist, because men don't usually rape men, but men do rape women. So that was a creation, that rapist statement was a creation of Rachel Jeantel's own imagination. She created that and then lied about it and put it into record. But it's a flat out lie, one of which I would not forgive her of as well. The sixth fact that I want to present here, demonstrating unequivocally that this young girl has exonerated George Zimmerman, is that she did establish the fact that Zimmerman did follow Trayvon Martin. In fact, she did an excellent job of that, and I commend her. She did an excellent job and was unshakable no matter how many times Don West questioned her regarding the matter. She was unshakable that Trayvon Martin felt very uncomfortable with the peering eyes and presence of George Zimmerman. He was very uncomfortable with that. And the conversation between Trayvon Martin and Rachel Jeantel was clear that he was very uncomfortable. He didn't like the fact that he was being followed by George Zimmerman. However, I have some concerns about how George Zimmerman did follow him. But I'll give Rachel credibility. She stood up in court. She stood up against grueling cross-examination, and she established the fact that George Zimmerman was following Trayvon Martin, and he made that clear, and she could not be shaken from that. So she's solid on that. Solid on the fact that Zimmerman did follow, solid on the fact that Trayvon Martin was very uncomfortable with that following. She is solid on the fact that Trayvon Martin was moving towards his house and not towards George Zimmerman. Solid on that, unshakable. I believe her on that. She's credible as far as that is concerned, if you want to give her credibility after the other lies that have been told. Now, fact number 7, I think, is that we want to refer to this phrase of the sounds of wet grass. By the way, I made the comment to our staff that Rachel Jeantel is going to go down in history. Her terms, creepy ass cracker, sounds of wet grass, those terms will be far more publicized than Rodney King's "Can't We All Just Get Along." These terms are going to be used in every venue possible, preached about. They're going to become historical. There's no doubt about that. And this young girl has uttered some very historical things. The sounds of wet grass, I don't know if I've ever heard anything remotely like that. How does wet grass sound? I know how water sounds. I know people say watching grass grow as an insultive statement, but this is a poetic statement that it's something that a poet would say. It's something that Paul Laurence Dunbar would say, or Langston Hughes would say, or Carl Sandburg, or Shakespeare. But Rachel Jeantel, this is poetic. And I know that what she was trying to communicate, that when their movement there on the wet grass and the footsteps of George Zimmerman or the footsteps of Trayvon Martin, but somebody put that word in her vocabulary, sounds of wet grass. So we have to then conclude that she was coached on a certain style of language. And this is only important for one reason, fact number 7, because now I want to look carefully at the fact that she alleges to speak 3 languages, Spanish, Creole, and English. A number of people who want to give her credibility, who want to convict George Zimmerman, are saying, well, you know, she was mumbling, and the reason why she didn't respond the appropriate way and it seemed hostile is because English is not her first language. And so therefore, she didn't understand the compound and convoluted, if you will, way in terms of the language that was being presented to her by Attorney Don West. So she had a little problem grasping the language that, that was being presented. Well, you know, that certainly is plausible. My experience has been is that people who are bilingual generally think in two different modes because they think in two different languages. They see and hear in two different languages. They're hearing at the same time in English and Spanish, if that be the language style. But the other thing is that children that are bilingual, where Creole or Spanish is spoken in the house, but English is spoken out in the schools of which she's been in since she was, I guess, in kindergarten, which would be at least 12 years. English is the language that's spoken, so I would suspect that she would be very fluent in English, that she would not have a problem understanding English, that it would not be a barrier to her. I know that most children that come from Mexico or other places, in Mexico in particular, who speak the Mexican or Spanish language when they cross the border, but once inside the school system in a few months, they speak English perfectly. In fact, they pick it up better than some of the people that are English born. So I don't buy this excuse that everybody's trying to give her and for that she was having problem understanding because she didn't speak the English language. But if you want to give her that, I will not argue with you. What I do want to argue about is this, is that here is a 19-year-old just going to the 12th grade. A 19-year-old just going to the 12th grade who states in courts, and it's documented as fact, that she cannot read cursive writing. I find that amazing, that anybody could go that far in life and not be able to read. Of course, that's pretty much par for the course of what happens in many of our schools nationwide, especially in the hood. But the thing that I find even more fascinating is this, and a lot of pundits are talking about this. She is mainly Haitian in terms of her bloodline. I have come many years looking at the various shades of black people, Caribbeans, Africans, people of the hood, African Americans, mulattoes, people that are passing for white, even though they're black, like Julian Bond and Mark Mariel, and you know, I have come to look at these various levels of blackness. And I can tell you now, having documented in messages and sermons gone by years ago, that Haitian people are perhaps the most productive, the most intellectual, the most trustworthy of all black people. That's right. If you got a Haitian doctor, keep him. You got a Haitian lawyer, keep him. No, Haitians, of all the Caribbean, Jamaicans, Bermuda, whatever, you know, people born in Africans, Nigerians, Kenyans, South Africans, Haitian people rise to the top as the most industrious, hardworking, most intelligent, easily educated, and have fewer contacts with the law than any other roster of black people in America, and has been that way for years. So for her to be of Haitian descent and demonstrate such, I suppose, absence of responsibility towards developing an intellect is an insult to Haitian people. And it's an insult for the talking head people in the dung head media to get up and say, well, she comes from a broken environment. Haitians are not broken. Haitians in America do better. They're more homeowners, they're more business owners, they're more prosperous, and you can't deny that. This is fact. So there's something internally demented about Rochelle Jeantel that as a Haitian, that at 19 years old, she's just going into the 12th grade. And even the school that she says she goes to posted up on her Facebook, that particular school there in North Miami says they never heard of her before. She even lies about what school she goes to. So that this woman has an extraordinary character flaw. But you know, what I can say, 60% of black people don't graduate high school, and they certainly don't do it on time. So the fact that she's 19 and just entering into the 12th grade is pretty much par for the course for the average black person in the hood, or for a hood rat, but not for Haitians. Not for Haitians, my friend. And so I roundly reject the fact that she should be given some leeway because she comes from the Haitian descent. That's an insult to the Haitian people, and they ought to rise up and denounce all people in the media for saying so. Fact number 8, and I'm going to be through with you shortly. A number of people are saying, well, she didn't speak the language well, so the concepts, the compound sentences or questions were difficult for her to interpret, since how she speaks Creole, Spanish, and some English. But you know, when Don West said to her that perhaps Trayvon Martin instigated the event and perked up the things he was saying to her on the phone, her response was, "That's retarded, sir." Now, the word retard means a person of low intellect, a person who doesn't get it, a person who doesn't understand. And usually the person who calls someone else retarded, sees themselves in a superior intellectual structure. They see themselves as having an intellectual overture over the person to whom they refer to as retarded. So for Rachelle Jeantel to respond to the attorney, Don West, as being retarded, or that his ideas or approach are retarded, means she understands clearly what he is saying, enough to make a value judgment, enough to make an intellectual judgment about what he is saying. She understood clearly from day one everything that he was saying. She just chose to be hostile based on the fact, thinking that as a little surly child and acting stubborn, eventually they'll let her go. And like a mother or father lets a child who acts very surly and stubborn, well, we're just going to let you go because you don't feel too good about this circumstance. That's all she was doing, was acting like a little 5-year-old girl up there on that stand. But when she wanted to express her intellectual strengths and her abilities to understand, she said, "That's retarded, sir." It's on the record. It's a fact. She called an attorney retarded. So you make the judgment call on that. Finally, it is foolish, but I suppose the prosecution had no choice but to put her on the stand. She was a train wreck in Times Square on New Year's Eve. That woman was a disaster. But they had to put her there. Let me tell you why. Because the defense knew she was out there. The dung-head media had already reported that Trayvon Martin was talking to his girlfriend on the phone. They had to find her. If the prosecution, recognizing that this woman is a train wreck, she's going to blow this case right out the water if we put up there, but they had to do it. And they put her up there as soon as they could to try to get her out the way. But they knew that she was the worst person possible to put on the stand. Which brings me to a point of view I'd like to point up about my first wondering, what did Trayvon Martin's girlfriend look like? But now I also want to state that Trayvon's associate has given him a guilty of the aggression and has created a reasonable doubt not to send George Zimmerman to prison for 25 years for life. His associates, his girlfriend, has opened up that door. And I just don't see it being closed. I don't see anything that the prosecution can do that will close that door. But I think also what we need to understand is that we are judged by our associates. We are. You know, my mama used to tell me birds of a feather flock together. My mama would always also tell me she didn't want me hanging out with certain kinds of people because of the reputation that they had. A lot of people don't want their daughters to marry certain kinds of men because of the reputation that they have. So we are judged by our associates. The company that we keep looms large and speaks volumes about who we are as individuals. If Trayvon Martin, who was also a young man, 17 years old at the time of death, hangs out with people like Rachelle Jeantel, what does that say about him? And if Trayvon Martin reacted to George Zimmerman, when questioned by George Zimmerman, the way that Rochelle Jeantel reacted to the court proceedings, because they are birds of a feather, and they didn't have to, and I'm not saying conclusively that they did. But if Trayvon Martin reacted the way Rochelle Jeantel had reacted, you've got a very explosive situation because, well, I don't know whether or not Rochelle Jeantel would hit or swing on Don West if they were in the street. I don't know if she would do that, but I can tell you that we can now look deeper into the personality of Trayvon Martin and discover he probably threw the first punch. He was most agitated, and he was the one with the least authority. Now, what are we going to do with this? What would the jury do with it? I've stated that George Zimmerman has been acquitted. There's a lot of talk going around now. If you acquit George Zimmerman, you're going to have another Rodney King, and you're going to have riots all over America. And my understanding psychologically of those that are promoting such an idea are saying, we realize we got a weak case, but you better convict anyway. Because if you don't convict George Zimmerman, we're going to riot. They're not saying, anyone who's saying there's going to be a riot is simply saying, they're not saying we want justice. We don't want to send a man to prison while we realize Trayvon Martin is dead. He'll never be able to do the things that young men are able to do. His mother and father will miss him forever. And it's just a tragic thing that he's dead. It's so tragic. But on the other hand, we don't want to send a man to prison for 25 years to life if he's not guilty. They're not saying that. They're saying, we don't care. They're saying, if you turn him loose, we're going to riot, which I find to be, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be germane to certain races or types, but it just doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't advance anything at all. Because, you know, a lot of black people have been sent to prison because of racism and prejudice. You know, a lot of people, you know, the Prison Fellowship, the Innocence Project has been able to take many people off of death row because police officers lied, witnesses lied, people hated the person that was on trial and just wanted to see them go to jail. And DNA has now opened up a lot of cases through the Innocence Project, and innocent men have walked out of prison after being there for 25 years. It was conclusively proven that they didn't do it. They weren't even at the scene of the crime. But hatred put people in prison all the more. Is that what America's going to do now if George Zimmerman gets set free? Is that what's in your heart? You don't care about justice. Well, what happens when it's on your watch? What happens if someone, because of your skin color, just wants to see you convicted because they want to get vengeance for Emmett Till, for Amadou Diallo, for Medgar Evers, from Dr. King, and from slavery and Jim Crow? Because of those people, we want George Zimmerman, whether he's guilty or not, to go to jail for the rest of his life. Is that where you are? And if you are, I mean, it would not be without the ability to understand it. I don't know what the jury is going to do. But I can tell you this, those that are suggesting riots are simply now realizing there's a weak case ahead of them, and George Zimmerman has already been acquitted by nearly every witness that's gotten up on that stand, but most emphatically by Rochelle Jeantel. So all the people that are now going to hate me and call me a racist and say I'm against Trayvon Martin and, you know, and I'm an Uncle Tom and all those kinds of things, you're free to do that. I mean, this is America. You have freedom of speech. But I've not lied to you. I've just presented the facts. Wouldn't you want me for your lawyer if you were on trial for being accused of killing someone and there were no witnesses? Wouldn't you want me with this kind of, wouldn't you want me to set your boy free? Wouldn't you want me to bring the facts, the whole facts, not racism, not prejudice, not sentimentalism? Wouldn't you want me to get your boy off? Wouldn't you want me to tell the truth? Wouldn't you want me to present the facts as they are? And then let the jury make a decision to see whether or not there is a reasonable doubt that George Zimmerman was attacked and was not the attacker. Wouldn't you want me to do that? I'm sure you would wear the shoe on the other foot. And for those of you who hate me and will continue to hate me no matter how much truth I speak, I recognize that many people just don't have the capacity to recognize truth regarding where they are and the boiling cauldron of foolishness that directs their lives through the eyes of racism, black people, and slavery. I know that it'd be like asking you to dunk a basketball if you're only 2 feet tall. You don't have the capacity to dunk. So many people don't have a capacity to hear my love. We need justice, whether it's black justice, whether it's a black person or white. We need justice. We need truth. And the truth will set us free. If you hate me, why don't you just stand up and scream it? I hate you, Manning. I want to see Zimmerman convicted, whether he's guilty or not. Just stand up and scream it. But I can tell you this. I'm James David Manning. I'm the Lord's anointed. George Zimmerman was acquitted by Rachel Jeantel.
All truth, all the time. The Manning Report is sure to blow your mind. Just let me hear you sing. He's gonna make your day. Just listen to the word.